Good morning, and we're live in Augment Your Week, the last day of August. Ramona took Marty out for a walk this morning, and she came back and said there's a little bit of a nip in the air. I checked the temperature, it's 45 degrees. The high today is 64, and it's probably going to rain. Oh my goodness, it sounds like fall is on its way. The leaves are starting to turn here in Utah. Very exciting. I love this time of season. Put on a sweater and just really enjoy the beautiful colors. Thanks all for joining us this morning. We've got a very special topic. Now, sometimes the topics for these events are born out of my current life experiences. And I hope you're okay with that as I'm studying the scrolls and living life and taking on challenges and in creation to be able to share some of these things with you, because I sense that I'm not the only one who's been struggling with this particular issue. So I'm going to invite you all this morning to pull up a piece of paper and your journal if you have one. Here's my journal. And notes, since I have some notes from my journal over the weekend. And I want to walk through a couple of things with you. And I'm going to share from a personal perspective in hopes that my sharing will allow you to be introspective about your situation and perhaps look at it from a safer place, a safe vantage point to take a look and go, ooh, that would probably serve me to take a look at that in my life. I have to go back to 1990 to begin this story. We had just moved from California. We sold our house just barely. We were $1 million in debt. I was the corporate signer of all the corporate debt, $1 million. We had lost millions of dollars in assets in the collapse of the real estate market, and we were trying to survive. I had produced some films, educational films, one on child abuse called Come In From the Storm, the China doll, the diary, the necklace. And it was on every military base in the world, every Department of Defense school system, like 30,000 schools in the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. A very fun project. That kind of thing was keeping us alive. And that sounds great that it's in every school. I think that was maybe a $20,000 order or something. You know, it's not going to keep solving your problems forever, right? So we're kind of limping along. I made the choice to become a professional writer. I had written and directed Come In From the Storm, Reach Out, Can't You See Me, films on teenage drinking and driving and other topics. But now it's time to do it for a profession, as a profession, not an avocation, but a profession. So I'm writing, we're trying to survive, and every once in a while I needed to sell a treasure. And we had this roll top, fruitwood inlaid French desk, just gorgeous. We had sold its companion, a fruitwood inlaid grandfather clock, right off the back of the truck to the owner, the buyer of our old house. And we still have this piece left. And I put it up for sale. And the person came, of course, they fell in love with it, and they didn't even dick around the price. They just said, I'll take it. And it's now loaded up and they're on their way. And I was just almost in tears. And I said, sweetheart, I am so sorry that we have to sell all these prized antiques. And Ramona smiled. She said, I never liked antiques. Now you have to understand that our house was filled with antiques. We had a beautiful rosewood square grand piano, these settees that were just magnificent that we'd had reupholstered. I mean, it was incredible what we had in terms of antiques for that home we had in California. She said, I don't really like antiques. And I said, what? What are you saying? She says, oh, I like drawers that work. I like drawers that work. I'll never forget that. Drawers that work. She liked furniture that was functional. And I went, oh my goodness. I thought about how many auctions And how many times I drug her across California to look at something. Long trips sometimes to get the perfect dining room set. A model of one that was in the White House and having it refinished for the dining room. It was gorgeous, gorgeous dining room set and buffet. Anyway, bottom line is that's what she said. Well, we still had 2 pieces left. One was a very petite, hand-carved French, country French console table. And another was called a dessert. It was a country French dessert. It's kind of a low buffet, low mirror, small mirror, and tiger wood marble, beautiful piece. And we at one time had a country French table and chairs that went with it with wicker backs, the whole thing. But this piece was left, and I've just been hanging on to it. We've owned it for somewhere between 35 and 40 years, depending on when we bought it. I didn't look at the receipt. 35 years. That's an incredible amount of time, isn't it? 35 years. It's been in our life. We've always found a place for it. It's always displayed something on the marble. And the other day, Ramona said, as we were selling our bedroom furniture, 2 queen bedroom sets, the dining room, the living room, because the furniture in this home just does not fit the lake house. And it was beautifully decorated. We negotiated for a lot of the furniture in that home. It just fits it so well. There's just no room for this. So we've been selling those things. I've been hanging on to that French table, and we found the buyer for it. And now this dessert. Ramona said, is there any way possible that we might sell that? Well, she has me trained. I've been letting go of so many things as we've been packing, getting ready for the move on the 14th. I just went down, took pictures of it, and wrote the ad and put it on KSL.com. That's the classified ads for locally here. And the ad hadn't even finished posting, and the doorbell rang. And it was the person coming to buy that little petite hand-carved country French table. And as they were getting ready to take it out, I said, when you get that out to your vehicle, why don't you come back in? Because I want to show you one more piece. Well, they came down to look at it, and her eyes just went when she saw it at the bottom of the stairs. It was a focal point at the bottom of the stairs. And she looked at it, and she said, how much do you want for it? And I told her, and you always on KSL.com add a little bit of money so someone can ask for a discount and they feel good about themselves. You can't say firm on my price. Nobody wants to call. They want to be able to bargain a little bit. So I just went right down to where I was willing to go and said, if you take it for this, if I put it at this price, would you take it? And she said, do you take Venmo? And I said, yes. And she said, I'll take it. Then she turned to her husband and said, I'm sorry, I like it. That's all there was to it. I helped them disassemble it. And I carried out the mirror, and he carried out the marble, and the 2 of them carried out the base, and they put it in their truck and drove away. And I thought, wow, how long have I been clinging on to this piece of furniture? Because I can remember the first time I saw it. I've always put it in a beautiful location. It's always had something on it of value, a vase or a flower arrangement or something. Just hanging on to it. And just letting it go. Then last night, we were talking, yesterday afternoon about 5:30. We were talking about our Vespas. Ramona and I invested in 2 Vespas, 2 white ones, and we have a trailer, so we can trailer it up to the cabin if we want to. It's a stand-up trailer, so it actually stands up on its end, and you can store it right there on the side of the garage. It's really convenient. Vespas are fun to ride. But last week we went for a ride, and we're riding around the neighborhood, and we came around a corner, and mine slid almost out from underneath me. It was just, whew, and somehow I just got enough asphalt to grip the back tire and put my foot down and get it back up again. And I came so close to going down. and I was wearing shorts, which is crazy. I know I had a helmet on, but I was wearing shorts. It was the neighborhood. So we thought, I'll just drive around the neighborhood. Well, it turns out that a few weeks earlier, I knew my daughter-in-law had taken a spill on her Vespa. I didn't know until after we got home and I shared with Ramona, because she was way out in front of me, what had just happened. She's, oh my goodness, that's the same corner that she crashed on. And it just wiped out her left arm. There's raspberries in her left leg, and one of her granddaughters was on the machine with her. Wasn't hurt as seriously, but she really took the brunt of the crash when they went down. And my heart pounds every time I think about it, because with that bilateral pulmonary embolus and the blood thinners that I'm on, if I took a really nasty hit and started bleeding, it could get dangerous. Anyway, just having some anxiety about it. And I thought, I'll ask her. So I know she loved this Vespa. And I said, sweetheart, what would you think if we sold the Vespas? Because where we're going, there aren't too many places to just ride. And she said, yes. And I know it'd take some of your anxiety away, she said. So I went out in the garage and took the pictures and put on KSL. And this morning, there's 98 people who looked at it, and one loves it. We'll see if anybody calls. But just letting it go. And we were talking last night about OgMent Your Week. And we were talking about the importance of having something happen in our life. For us, it's a move. And it's so symbolic. We're moving to a different location. That's like you might be changing your life, changing a career path, starting a new business. Those are the kinds of things we're talking about. That in that moment, to take a look at all of those things that we've been carrying around for all of these years, and maybe it's time to let some of them go. I'm talking about material things. Sometimes we identify with them. We identify with a piece of artwork that maybe we invested heavily in, or a rug, or a couch, or a table, or a bedroom set, whatever it might be. Is there anything materialistic, a car, a boat, that you're hanging on to that you really should let go? Either economically, it's not serving you, it's not being used enough, you're trying to make it fit, and I should say make your life fit in it. You got that? Your life fit in it versus whether or not it fits in your life. Because sometimes we're not clear enough on what it is that we want to be able to see the things that don't fit. That dessert, as much as I loved it, fits in this house. But in 2 weeks, we'll be in a new house, and there is absolutely no place for it. It would have been out in the garage and maybe sold then after the fact instead of now. Being able to see what doesn't fit. Now, some of us collect a lot of things. Yesterday afternoon, we spent a couple of hours on the dining room table with all of our family history from parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, going back generations. Their stories, books they've written, all kinds of things, letters I sent to my parents when I was doing mission work and at school, and Ramona's letters to her parents when she was at school. And oh my goodness, just on and on. Letters her dad sent to her mom when they were in the military. An enormous treasure trove of memories. And the question was, what do we keep? The only thing we let go was a duplicate book and 2 duplicate 3-ring binders after we make sure the kids all have a copy of my father's book, which is printed in a 3-ring binder. Those are things you don't let go. It inspired me going through that material to say, I want to find out more about this great-grandfather. I started reading some things, and I found a letter that my father sent me. Gosh, I get emotional. We'd been married 12 years. We just moved into our dream house in California. We had generated significant wealth by that time. We were 33, 34 years old. I had a Ferrari of all things. It's crazy, right? And my father wrote a letter. He sent me a book. He didn't mention the letter, and I can't remember the name of the book, but he said, I want you to read this. He says, my doctor gave it to me when I was just burned out, and to make sure that you can live to 100. And I had forgotten, because my memory of my father until I was about 50, 55 wasn't that favorable. And I really had to repent last night, because there's my dad pouring out in a letter the most generous compliments about what we had accomplished as a family. We had all seven of our children by then. We're in our dream home. We were living a crazy, wonderful life. And I was extremely busy, which hasn't changed, right? And this beautiful letter, those things we hang on to, those are treasures. But I would encourage you from a physical standpoint. It's hard at first, because it's hard for me to go through and say, will I ever read that book again? And is there somebody else who could read it if I gave it to a bookstore? Is that piece of furniture something that's valuable enough somebody would want to buy it? Or is it something we could give to one of our children? Many of our treasured pieces we've given to our children. We have this massive painting by Michael Scofield, one of his originals early in his career. Beautiful landscape, hangs over our fireplace. We don't have a place for it. We don't really want to sell it, because artwork doesn't sell very well. And our daughter had a beautiful place for it. It's going to sit in her home. So every time I visit her, I get to enjoy that piece of artwork. Entertainment center, going up to their cabin in Eden, Utah. It's going to be perfect for this kind of a rustic piece. You just go on and on. What could you get rid of to simplify your life, to clean things out a little bit, to make things function a little bit better? Do you have any bit of hoarding in you? Now, I've got a little bit of me. Ramona has zero in her. Matter of fact, I remember one day I went in to get a pair of deerskin shoes that I loved, and they weren't there. And I asked Ramona, and she said, you haven't worn those in 6 months, have you? And I said, no, but I wanted to today. So, well, somebody came by a few weeks ago getting shoes for Africa, and I gave them to them. We've had some wonderful conversations about what you give and don't give without saying something. But I have a tendency to be a hoarder. I hang on to stuff. So for me, this is a big deal. It could be a really big deal for you. Just take a look around the room where you're watching this if you're at home. Is everything neat and tidy and have a place? Are there stacks of anything anywhere? If you go out into the garage, can you park your cars in the garage? Or is the garage so full of stuff? And what is the stuff? And is it like, well, someday we may? What would happen if you just blessed another life with some of that stuff, either through a thrift store donation, or to your children if they're grown, or you just got rid of it? And you could park your car in your garage. Just imagine what it would be like. Thank you, Tammy. I started this 2 weeks ago. Yay. Kindred souls. Tammy, take this on. We'll get our lives cleaned up, because physically impacts every other facet of our lives. There are measurements in the habit finder that suggest that we have things in our life that get in the way of our productivity. And I would suggest that one of those biggest things can be our physical surroundings. Our physical surroundings. Now I'm going to just touch on one more. That's our financial surroundings. Read an article this weekend by Dave Ramsey, who's very famous for helping people get out of debt. It caught my attention because the question was, is it smart to trade interest-bearing credit cards for no interest-bearing or lower interest credit cards? And he said no. And I went, well, that's interesting. Why wouldn't you pay lower interest? And his perspective was very interesting. He said it's not the interest rate of the credit card that gets us in trouble. It's using the credit card and not paying it off. That's what gets us in trouble. The habit of getting into debt using credit cards. We've had a time in our life when world fell apart, and the credit cards helped keep us alive while we're rebuilding a business. Some of you may have been in that space. Then you spent a lot of time paying it back because you pay back debt after tax. In other words, you earn money, pay tax, and then you pay off the debt. It's very expensive to pay back because you're paying both the tax load and the principal on the debt. Let's just take a look for a moment at our debt and saying, ask ourselves, how are we doing in terms of habits? Could we let go of some habits where we just turn to that card when we have a desire? We just turn to it and get very real that the balance on that card is not money in a bank account. That's money we're borrowing, and we do have to pay it back, and generally at a relatively high interest rate, even if you're like at 8 or 9%, because the bank's paying you about 0.25% on your savings account. So it's a big spread there to pay that kind of money on a credit card. Most of them are much higher than that. So take a look at debt. Take a look at your home. Part of the reason for us taking our house and our cabin and putting into one property is to simplify everything. It's a beautiful home. So we're really not cutting back in terms of quality, but we are on 2 direct television bills, 2 maintenance bills, 2 watering bills, 2 gas bills, and on and on and on, 2 property tax bills, and the list goes on. Just take a look at your economics and say, do I really need that? And there are some things I would say, yeah. I know someone who recently bought a boat and got a loan for it. But the memories that are being created with that boat and that family are worth far more than that relatively small monthly payment, which is fairly easy for him. And if you're going to buy a boat, don't buy an inexpensive one because you'll end up spending the difference in maintenance. So be wise. Be wise. Know why, not just impulsive. Now, when you look at the scrolls, and I'll close with this, they're just filled with this. Scroll 9, letting go of procrastination, just making the decision. Because you know when you procrastinate and you reach a deadline, you jump in, you're surprised because your genius shows up. Let's stop being surprised by our natural genius and just start living in it. Let's stop letting go. Let's let go of procrastination. A lack of direction. That's a strange thing to let go of. Yeah, I just kind of will let it happen as it happens. Taking charge of your life, deciding what it is you want, and then putting into motion those things. And it's not so what you want. If you've got a companion, what you want together. If you've got children, what everybody wants. What do you want? And letting go of a lack of direction or indirection. That's scroll 8. Must have objectives before my life will crystallize. Letting go of resentment and anger. Scroll 7, and laugh at the world. This too shall pass. Scroll 6, letting go of victimhood and emotions that are unhealthy. I'll be the master of my emotions. Oh my goodness, we get down to scroll 6, scroll 9, letting go of fear. Scroll 5, letting go of the past. Let the past go, not the memories of our ancestors and relatives and what got us here, but past failures. Let's just put them in our heart, use them to serve people instead of dragging them around behind us. Letting go of impatience. Scroll 3, being persistent, 1 step at a time. 1 is not too much. Any deed can be accomplished 1 step at a time. Scroll 2, letting go of judgment. There's so many things that we can start letting go of, but let us start with our physical surroundings. And let's just take a box today. Take a box and just go around and say, that is of no value. That is not serving me. Put it in the box, make the decision. Is it going to a thrift store? Are you going to try to sell it on an online service? You're going to give it to somebody who could use it. But clear your space and make room for creation. Make room for inspiration. Make room for productivity and clarity. Let's start with our physical surroundings and work inward from there into our finances and into our fear and our emotions and see if we can't, over the next few months, let go of all of this baggage that we're trying to fit our life into, instead of deciding the life we want and only keeping those things that fit. Well, have a blessed day, everyone. I'm hoping this will inspire you to do what is inspiring me. I feel so free. This is the road to ultimate freedom, starting with the physicality and then working inward. Can you imagine a life free of everything that's been burdening you, everything you're trying to fit your life into? And you choose and direct your life, self-directed, acting on your own moral authority, doing the next right thing for the right reason, because you want to, get to, and choose to. Take charge, as we talked about last week. Make that choice and start by letting go of those things that are not serving you. Everybody have a wonderful week. Much love from the OG group. If you haven't taken your Habit Finder assessment, go in there, habitfinder.com. Take it. It's free. The whole thing, you get it. See if you can identify some habits of thinking that you're going to want to let go, and some that might be having you hanging on to other things because of them. Thanks, everyone. See you next Monday.